Welcome into Leather Brains, your host here, Slab Dog. Today we're going to be doing some things a little different. Excuse me. I have Scotty here with me, our producer, of course.
It's me.
And we have a new, I don't know if I should say guest, reoccurring guest, part of the team. We have a Leather Brains team member here with us today, Kahan, excuse me. He's going to be joining us today, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different NFL news coverage, as well as at the end of this podcast, we're going to be talking about the top 10 picks in the NFL draft and kind of go over some thoughts and opinions there. Before we do that, though, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here for us here at Leather Brains.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the terrific introduction.
You're making me blush.
Like he said, my name is Matthew Kahan. I'm very happy to be here. I've been doing fantasy football now for about 10 plus years of my life. I'm a college student right now. I attend Syracuse University. For Leather Brains, I've been writing articles for the past year regarding different NFL and fantasy football trends with different players, waiver wire pickups, and other trade targets. And yeah, I'm getting more into the podcast and starting to come on my first episode here. So definitely excited to work with the guys and talk some football.
Well, we're excited to have you here. If there was anything that anybody would know you for Leather Brains, what might that be? I just got to ask. I'm just curious.
Yeah. The Jalen Hurts Week 5 take.
Who the fuck is Matthew Kahan?
Now the audience is getting a proper introduction to it. They are. I am a little bit famous for that, and definitely, took a lot of crap from some of my Philly friends. But that take ended up coming well into fruition.
I was going to say, you weren't wrong. Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of Eagles fans specifically, were pretty pissed off about it, but it's hard to argue with you when you look at the trajectory of the rest of the season, you see that take, and then you're like, oh yeah, Jalen Hurts didn't do as well as he typically has been. So
some might even say Matthew Kahan is the reason the Eagles sucked.
Some might say that.
Downfall, yeah.
the profit.
Yeah, no. It's the funny thing is that it also wasn't, a crazy take at the time. At least when I wrote about it, I wasn't in my head thinking, oh my God, I'm going to blow up Twitter by, making this crazy hot take. It kind of, made sense in my head, but as hopefully everyone can see, I'm a big diehard Bears fan. So got the Bears jersey in the background. Used to have a Justin Fields poster there, but had to take that down for sure.
Oh, well, maybe we should just touch on that then. How being a Bears fan, you got to bring the Bears mentality to the podcast. What do you think about all this nonsense with Justin Fields? Did he get a fair shake? Are you excited about your painted nails, pink phone case future quarterback? How do you feel about all this as a Bears fan?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's crazy for anyone out there genuinely thinking that Fields was the answer now that we hold the number one pick. If we did not have Carolina's first and, we were sitting at 9th overall, maybe my opinion would be different because, we would have to trade up for Caleb or, we might be looking at a different quarterback for trading up for. But if you just look at what Fields really struggled with, he just never seemed to really improve with those, mechanics, being able to get rid of the ball quick enough, being able to make a read. And I think, that's one of the most important things in the NFL is, being able to do things before the defense gets to you. And while he made a lot of heroic plays and did, a lot of cool things that were highlight worthy, you only notice those plays because the other ones are so bad. And that's kind of what I realized was, some of these throws, I'm like, wow, that was a great throw by Fields. But then I realized, the elite quarterbacks in the league, even the good quarterbacks, are making that throw, on a normal basis. So
is this a Justin Fields problem or is it an Eberflus / the rest of the coaching staff problem?
I was going to ask that question. That was really because you look at the situation at hand, and none of us are Bears fans here, and so we're looking at the situation from like a half media perspective and then also trying to do our due diligence. But at some point you have to recognize the amount of turnover that the Bears have faced is from the coaching staff to front office turnover and everything in between. Justin Fields has been in the middle of all of that. So does that not play a part into his development? And then my follow-up question would be, are you not concerned that some of these same things might happen with Caleb Williams at the 101?
So I think when we drafted Fields, there were definite issues. Obviously, Eberflus came in, year 2 of his career, and there's just been a lot of moving parts in the organization. Allen Robinson was really the only true receiver we've had in the past 5 years besides, bringing in DJ Moore last year.
Talk
So
about
I
falling
do
off quick.
Right. So I do think that, did he get the best treatment for rookie quarterback? No. But do the best rookie quarterbacks succeed no matter what? A lot of the time, yes. CJ Stroud, while, he's a great outlier to this, didn't have the best weapons available, but still, was able to develop players around him. I think that's the biggest difference between Fields and a guy like Stroud, or even a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Fields does not elevate the players around him. The players around him elevate Fields. And I think that's where, the media kind of comes in and puts out a different message, is because people are like, oh, everyone needs to give him weapons, or, the organization needs to give him weapons because nobody would succeed through it. I've seen some great rookie quarterbacks, help develop and help uptick some of these receivers' statistics. And I just feel that the receiver that, adding players around Fields would obviously help him. But I think those players make a bigger impact on him than he does on those players. And as the quarterback, that's kind of the job and how you develop within the system and, build those connections. And I think DJ Moore will succeed even more with Caleb Williams, at the helm. And now we brought in, Keenan Allen, obviously, and we brought in another tight end with Gerald Everett and DeAndre Swift. And I think that, they're definitely all in it on Caleb at this point.
You want to know what's hilarious? I'm sorry to interject here, Scotty. This is just another year of DJ Moore having another quarterback. And you want to look at the statistics of DJ Moore and how much adversity he has faced at having a different quarterback every year of his career. And now you have this happening again. And it's from his perspective, he probably wants some fucking stability here, because with the Panthers, it was a different quarterback every year. They had some coaching turnover. He goes to the Bears. He's a very usable wide receiver. And then he loses his quarterback again, which is, I just find it kind of comedic and also probably somewhat frustrating from his perspective.
Well, it's just goes to show how impressive DJ Moore is, because we talk about him as such a impressive, talented wide receiver, in spite of the fact that he has just been at a shitstorm for every year of his career. So that's good for him. Looking at this one, go ahead.
Right. I was just gonna say, I completely agree with you there, Scotty. It just shows a little bit, in a way, of the untapped potential of DJ Moore, in terms of he's had such great years, but now obviously, we'll get more into draft talk and, Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams is an elite, passer. And when you put him with DJ Moore, that could be a ridiculous season. And obviously, bringing in Keenan Allen will, take away targets, and you have Cole Kmet, like I mentioned, Everett and Swift, also new additions. And the Bears also sit at 9th overall, which, could be a possible pick for a receiver. So, in terms of DJ Moore, I think he'll have another great season. But, you look what the Bears are doing, and they are realizing that you do want to put, great players around your quarterback, especially at, the developmental stages of their career. But, once you get past year 3 with QBs, it really becomes hard for them to develop more. You look at Josh Allen, who had a big jump his third year. Jalen Hurts had a huge jump his third year. And, these players, it takes them bringing in another receiver. The Bears did in DJ Moore, but we didn't see, the translation with Fields there. And I think that was, what came to fruition for, why we got rid of him.
If you were a young quarterback just finishing your senior year of college, entering the NFL draft, and you had to put your fandom aside as a Bears fan, there's a different reality. You're a star quarterback at Ohio State. You're loving your life.
Damn.
Would you rather be drafted by the Bears in 2024 or the Vikings in 2024?
I was going to ask this question way later when we got to the draft, and I think I'd like to put a bookmark in it, because there are some things that I think we need to talk about that co-align with that conversation. So with your permission, Scotty, I'd like to put a bookmark in that. We're going to come back to it. Thank you. I do have one more question regarding just the Bears and your fandom and everything that coincides with that. Do you believe in Eberflus as a coach? Do you think he is the right man for this job?
I do. I think he has shown. I've seen a lot of clips, and heard a lot of great things in terms of his connection with the players. Can he call an offense? Absolutely not. He should not be involved in the offensive play calling. And I think, that's where the new addition of Shane Waldron comes in, part of the Sean McVay tree out of Seattle. And I think that, that's where he comes in and calls the offense, because I think Eberflus can call a great defense. And, he's proved that year in, year out. I don't think anyone can question that. And I think the players do genuinely very much like him. And, I think at this point, he has a good relationship with Ryan Poles. And I think, if you take the Poles, Waldron, and, Eberflus this year, and this really starts to click, that's when you start to see, if Caleb works out with all of that, then, you start to see what are the future possibilities of this, where does this lead us? And I think that, you need a guy who could be great with the players and great on defense. Obviously D'Amico Ryans was a terrific, addition for the Texans last year, and it's a little bit, different, but I kind of see it in a similar way where, Bobby Slovic is the offensive mind there, but D'Amico is the guy talking to the players, the guy calling the defense and organizing everything. And I think the Bears can be similar in that way, also drafting the rookie quarterback.
Does it bother you that your rival's head coach is so much hotter than your head coach in Matt LaFleur?
That is a good question.
I'm a Chiefs fan. Andy Reid is the sexiest man on earth, so I don't have to ask myself this question. But I think if I looked across the field and saw Matt LaFleur, damn it, he's hot.
I don't think Matt LaFleur is the best looking head coach.
Well, when it comes to Eberflus versus LaFleur, he is.
Well, yeah, I think if you had to choose between Eberflus or a blow-up doll, I might be taking the doll. I'm not sure.
Whoa! But here's the thing. Did you see Eberflus's fresh cut and everything? His beard
That's why I brought this up, because he did get a lot hotter. It's like he's thinking about it. He's like, fuck, I gotta step up my game.
He's kind of looking like a silver fox a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he, like, me and my friends who are Bears fans saw it, and we were like, oh my god, he's ready for the season. There's
shit.
All the nerves are definitely out of the system after seeing him looking like that.
You think he's trying to pump himself up so he can get ready to look as good as Caleb Williams?
We're talking with the beard, right? Like the beard look with the kind of part. No, he looks like a way better human being than without it. I'm just throwing that out there. I know Eberflus listens, so I just kind of want to. You're on the right path, I think, Matt. Not to be confused with the other two Matts that are in here, but Matt Eberflus, I think. I know you're a prominent listener. Keep the beard, please. It's doing wonders for you. It's male makeup.
We'll see how it translates to wins on the field.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of wins on the field, Tom Brady, is he coming back? Is Tom Brady, the TB12, is he back in the building, baby? He went on and got a sick fade, I think is what the kids are saying these days, from Vic Blends. He's a very famous Instagram hairstylist, and Tom Brady went on. He's got kind of like a barbershop-esque podcast where he interviews people while he's cutting their hair. And so he's talking to Tom Brady, and they had kind of got to the conversation of Tom Brady coming back. And Tom Brady said this. He said, like MJ coming back, I wouldn't be opposed to it. And then he goes on to say that if an NFL team had called and they were making a playoff push and needed a quarterback, he might answer the phone. And I bring all this up because I think he's done. I think we can all probably agree that he's done. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. But I do want to point this out because the 49ers actually, let's not forget, they called Tom Brady last year in the offseason when Brock Purdy was going to be their quarterback. And Shanahan had said, hey, Purdy, hey, man, look, we like you, but if we get Tom Brady, and even Purdy was like, yeah, if you get Tom Brady, I get it. Like, it's Tom Brady's spot, So is it realistic that Tom Brady comes back?
If anyone can do something so stupid and be successful, it's Tom Brady. So I guess I wouldn't put it past him. But to me, it's got to be like this is just media fodder. It's obviously not going to happen. But if it were to happen, it would have to be like the most perfect situation. Not only does the team have to be competing, not only does their star quarterback have to get injured, but it also has to be a team with enough weapons that Tom Brady doesn't have to move around in the pocket at all, that he can just drop back and get rid of the football. The 49ers are like the perfect team that come to mind. Like that, I think it could work with the 49ers. I don't know if it would work with any other team.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I actually don't think it would be great for the 49ers because I don't believe that Brady is still the same player. Like, obviously it's Brady, but at this point, I would just rather have Purdy. Like, I think Purdy, while it sounds a little crazy, plays very similarly to Brady in the fact where everyone calls Purdy a game manager, but the way I see it, Brady was just an incredible game manager at the end of the day. He made the accurate throws, game-winning drives, everything like that. But, you never saw him making these crazy throws out of the pocket and, running around and everything, which is like what people consider to not be a game manager these days. So it would be interesting if Brady went to like some random team like the Vikings or something like that. But I don't think that you could add him to any team that doesn't have a quarterback, and I would consider them to be contenders just because of Brady.
Let's play a game. Okay? And I'm not saying contenders, but I'm saying upgrade or not. And the upgrade being Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. If you were the Tennessee Titans, would you rather have Will Levis or Tom Brady at this juncture?
Are we talking like...
We're talking to start this season.
But is it just for 1 year, or is it like the franchise will still continue? Like, obviously.
Well, I don't think the franchise is going to blow up.
Right. Well, I'm saying like, so is it like for 1 year, we're looking at who's going to be better, Levis or Brady? Or are we saying,
Tom Brady rolls up into the Titans stadium and says, "You want me?" For 1 year. You take him over Will Levis this year.
No.
Okay. The Saints. They've got like 16 people playing quarterback at any given point. Would you rather have Derek Carr / Taysom Hill or Tom Brady?
Brady.
Okay.
The Saints couldn't possibly afford Tom Brady.
Well, the Saints, the Saints have proven that the cap space is not real.
They got a money printer in the locker room.
Let's say we'll do one more for you. I'm trying to think of like the worst situation, and I really want to say the Panthers, but obviously they're invested in Bryce Young, so that.
What about the
Giants? The Giants. That's actually a really good one. If Tom Brady kicked the door open for the New York Giants, I think you entertain that. I mean, I think the Giants entertain that.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
Well, at the very least, you get him on the roster. You hope he can teach Daniel Jones how to not get injured and how to shrink his neck a little bit so it's not so susceptible to pain. I don't know.
I don't either.
That's also what I was going to say is, obviously there's a ton of implications to it, but I'd say that I'd take Brady if my quarterback is like over the age of like 32 and he's like mediocre, but anyone younger than that, like I'm just going to take the younger quarterback because, Brady's going to give you one mediocre year, and unless
might give you a ring, might give you a Super Bowl.
He might, but you're going to have to fill those weapons around him really well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is media fodder. I think we're all in agreement there. But, dude, who knows? It's Tom Brady. Who knows? Also, in who knows news, Juju's penis performance. Yeah. I don't know if anybody saw this. I think the media was kind of keeping this a little bit quieter. I didn't see a lot of chatter on this, but I did see it come up, not literally. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? So, for anybody who doesn't know, Patriots wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, he posted a picture on his Snapchat story. It was him in a car with a female in the passenger seat, and his penis is very clearly out and on display in the Snapchat picture. Gentlemen, I'm just going to be the first to say this. Bill Belichick would not approve. Bill Belichick would not approve of this man flicking his wang around on a
Bill
Snapchat
Belichick is a bachelor. You saw him on the Ring camera after smashing some lady and standing shirtless outside of New England in the middle of winter trying to catch his breath. He understands, bro. Bill Belichick is a dog. He gets it. He's thinking, yeah, flaunt it, Juju. We do that around here in New England.
You're first and foremost, you're not from New England, nor I don't even know if you've ever been in New England. I'm not going to say that people are whipping their dicks around in New England. I haven't been there. I'm going to presume that they don't. And I'm also going to presume that how has there not been any repercussions for this? That's what I don't understand. Have you seen this, Kahan?
To be honest, I'm just going to presume that...
not the penis picture, but have you seen...
This is how he's keeping relevance in the NFL at this point. I mean, this is like let's just be honest here. Like he at this point he doesn't have much going for him, so it seems like maybe he was trying to attract some attention towards himself. But it is crazy because on a more serious note, you actually do see some of these players making some bonehead moves. Just on social media and stuff like that, as if, they don't have millions of followers of people that are always looking to catch them for any little, mistake that they make. So And in terms of that, it's a little bit crazy because if he was like in his prime at this point, it'd be a much bigger deal. But because like
Like,
not
oh, this
that
guy's
great.
washed up. Like, just
Yeah,
let
like at
him
this
let him
point,
show
he's
his
washed
dick
up.
around.
Who
People
gives
don't
a shit
care.
about his dick?
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
honestly, exactly. Yeah.
What were they calling him? TikTok boy? Is that what they
Exactly,
were calling
yeah.
Juju? Yeah. So I would say it's probably a relevance grab as well. Keep it in your pants, man.
He's just
Nobody
living
needs
his
to see
best
that.
life.
Well,
Once a
fair share.
chief, always a chief. I support him in all of his endeavors.
That's
Absolutely.
You feel that same way about Kareem Hunt?
Well,
Okay, that's
not
what
in
I thought.
all aspects.
Let's talk about Devontae Smith. The man got paid. Congratulations to Devontae Smith on a 3-year, $75 million extension. He will not have to play out his 5th-year option with the Eagles, with that looming question being, what is my future? So I think this was a great move for the Eagles. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that they can afford to do all this, because if you look at the roster and the talent level that the Eagles have both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, they have a lot of talent, and they got to pay a lot of talent to be able to be on that team. So it doesn't surprise me. I think Devontae Smith is without question a very talented wide receiver, and they certainly needed to do what they could to keep him around. And I think this makes sense for him too, because if you really look at the situation at hand, Devontae Smith is what, 24, 25?
Yeah, he's 25, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
So with a 3-year deal, you're getting locked in for buku bucks at $75 million. And then you still have the potential at 28 years old to go in and make another signing, big name money grab signing at 28 if you still have some relevance there. So I like this move. I'm curious as to your guys' opinions, but I think this was a smooth move by the Eagles to secure one of their playmakers.
At this point in time, obviously, with the Eagles, the end of last year excluded, they've seen relative success. They obviously think Jalen Hurts is their guy. They think this is their window. They want to secure their weapons. Makes perfect sense. And paying wide receivers is all the rage nowadays. So you just have to expect it. The Cowboys have refused to do any single thing at all this offseason to make sure they can keep CeeDee Lamb. And this is just the same sort of thing. They want to keep the guys that they got, and then hopefully draft well and hopefully make some smaller acquisitions that can push them over the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as I saw this, I was like, the salary cap has to be fake, because how can they be paying
Preach.
Jalen Hurts, Saquon, AJ Brown, Smith, Goddard, Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and Lane Johnson? They're paying
That's
like
8 big name people.
8 of their 11 offensive starters. And then obviously there's some defensive guys too, guys like Slay. You got Bryce Huff with a new contract. Obviously, I understand Kelsey retired, and I'm not sure exactly what happened to Fletcher Cox, but it's a good move for the Eagles. I mean, Smith is, in my eyes, he's the best one of the top tier wide receiver 2. I don't think he's a great wide receiver 1. So I think that, when you talk about guys like him and T. Higgins, I think it's just better for them to stay on their respective teams. Like, they are great number 2 wide receivers, but if you put them on a number 1 receiver, that's where you might start to see some of the efficiency fade, and their career start to dwindle a little bit. So it's good that he was able to get his money while also stay on a at least a quote unquote contending team.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a conversation for one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, it's a good situation. So I think he wants to stay there. They want to keep him. It's a good situation for him, despite the fact that they're poor now.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably going to be the case. They're maybe they're just offloading the cap into the ether, and then one day they'll have to pay it like the Saints do. I'm not sure, but I think that Eagles are fine. I think they're certainly a contender, and I think Saquon certainly helps with this. But the only reason I bring up this whole Devontae Smith thing is just to kind of compare some other deals here. Like, you want to talk about Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's a wide receiver too. He's not he kind of is a pseudo wide receiver 1 now for the Jaguars, but at the time he was a wide receiver 2 with the Cardinals. And he still kind of is in that wide receiver 2 role with the Jaguars, and he got paid buku bucks. I'm not a huge fan of Calvin Ridley. I don't think Calvin Ridley deserves nearly what he got as a contract from the Titans, and the Titans are paying him, who's an aging wide receiver, and DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be like 50 this year, and they're both getting paid buku bucks with the Titans. So, you bring up it's all the rage right now to pay wide receivers, Scotty, but at what point do we start to look at this and be like, hey, eventually, I think the NFL gets to a place where we're like, obviously, you're going to have your top tier upper echelon guys like your Justin Jeffersons or your Jamar Chases, but are wide receiver 2s not able to be found more actively than this? Because you're paying these guys a shit ton of money, And are they worth it? I think Devontae Smith is, but like in the Kirk and the Ridley example, I lean towards no.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a case by case example or a case by case basis because I agree with you with Calvin Ridley. I mean, he wasn't even the best wide receiver on his team last year, and now he's making $95 million at 45 years old or whatever he is. Like, that's very stupid. But at the same time, having a clear cut wide receiver, too, who is capable of drawing coverages and commanding respect from defenses, especially when you have an elite wide receiver one, can go a long way. And then again, all these teams are shifting that money from the running back position, which has a much shorter shelf life and isn't as reliable as these wide receivers. And they're choosing to invest in their pass catchers who can typically stay healthy and typically make a lot of moves with the league going to a more pass heavy style of play. I think it makes sense to, what we're seeing right now are teams who, whether or not they're correct about this depends on the team, but they feel like they have a shot. They want to capitalize on a window that they perceive. The Titans, I don't think they're in that window, but they think they're in that window. They love Will Levis. They very clearly have invested in Will Levis and that offense with him, and they think they want to capitalize on this window with a quarterback on a rookie contract. And that's what you're seeing all over the league is when you think you're in a window, go out and spend money on playmakers on offense. And a lot of times that's second, third wide receivers as well.
Yeah, but the Titans are a nursing home. They're the geriatrics club. I'm just being honest.
I mean, I think that I also agree with what Scotty was saying in terms of it is a case-by-case basis. I mean, you look at the Christian Kirk contract. When he got that contract, he had come off a mid-year. But you have to look at the market of wide receivers at that free agency. He was the top guy, and you had look at the season before, and Trevor Lawrence had nobody to throw to. So I think that contract is a little bit of an outlier because it was such a bad free agency class. But any receiver who's giving you 1,000 yards at this point, like you got to be looking to pay him upwards of 16 plus mil. That's just the market and how it's going.
All right, let's go over to Danny Dimes. Let's talk about Mr. Daniel Jones. He sounds like he might be on the mend, boys. He might be back in the building with the Giants. Daniel Jones said yesterday that the plan is to be ready by the start of training camp this season. He stated that his neck is no longer an issue, but the ACL still is as of this moment. So do we believe that Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback here at the beginning of the season? It's no surprise. It's a lot of talking right now in the media about the upcoming NFL draft. Giants have the 6th overall pick, so could potentially draft a quarterback. And then they also told Drew Lock, who was with the Seattle Seahawks, hey, buddy, come play for us. This quarterback room isn't a lock. They told him that. So what do we think about this whole Daniel Jones situation? Is he going to be the starting quarterback for the Giants this upcoming year? And or are they going to draft somebody, or will they use someone like Drew Lock?
My opinion on Daniel, this might be a hot take, but if I were to put together a short list of quarterbacks that I think are a lot better than what people give them credit for, Daniel Jones is near the top of that list. Daniel Jones has a lot of talent. The problem is he can't stay healthy. And the reason we look at Daniel Jones as this mid quarterback, which, I'm not saying that he's elite, but I'm saying that he's better than what we give him credit for, is because he's never had any weapons to throw to, and then he's dealing with injuries on top of that. So he's never putting together good stats. He is very athletic. He's capable of reading the field. He's just constantly in a panic because his offensive line is terrible and he has no weapons to throw to. You put Daniel Jones on a better offense, and I think he would impress you with how good he can be. And the Titans, the Giants obviously felt the same way because they wanted to pay him after he had a decent season. They saw the potential. The problem is they haven't built an offense around him. So for me, if I'm them, I am going to go get a wide receiver, and I'm going to try and put some weapons on this team and allow Daniel Jones to prove that he's worth the contract that we're paying him before I just decide to bench him and still pay him all this money and put in another mid-tier quarterback.
Yeah, the thing is, I've been surrounded by Giants fans for, the past year. Like I said, I go to Syracuse, so a lot of New York kids here and a lot of, people that, have opinions on the Giants. And one of my best friends is a Giants fan. And, I've asked him about it. He's like, we want JJ. That's, I think where Giants media is at this point. But the way I see it, I would go out and get an elite receiver in Malik Neighbors if I was them, or, Romo Dunze if Neighbors happens to go before then. I just think that, with Jones and with Locke, like you could end up with decent production out of one of them. And I think if you put JJ in the current situation with the Giants, how good is he going to do? I mean, he can't be that great with the receiving core of Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, and, Isaiah Hodgins or whoever else they have. So especially with, Darren Waller contemplating retirement at this point,
which
losing Saquon.
Is bullshit. It's bullshit. How do you not just determine and let your team know if you're going to be there? Because they kind of need to know that.
Right. I mean, I think he wants to see if they're going to draft a QB. And if they do, then I think he'll be in. And I think if they don't, then I think he'll be out because he's like, there's no point.
It's a moot point anyway because he's not going to play. I mean, he's dealt with so many injuries over the last few seasons that even if he does come back, can you really expect with any confidence that he's going to be on the field for the majority of the season? I don't have any expectation of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Drew Lock just get a chance. And especially if they draft a receiver, I'd like to see an open QB competition, in training camp and see, whoever wins, whoever they think will be better for the offense. I think that's how it should be. And if they have another, poor season, then maybe next year you look at the QBs. But at this point, it looks like to get JJ, they would more than likely have to trade up because it looks like other teams, such as the Vikings, might be traded into the 5th overall pick. So if I'm them, I'm going to take my stud receiver, and hopefully Locke or Jones can provide at least decent enough value for that receiver to develop, and maybe you pick up a veteran quarterback in the next offseason when they can get rid of Jones's contract.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And then it also gives you a little bit more stability from an offensive perspective because now okay, yeah, we do have a top tier wide receiver. So let's go get a quarterback that these two can click. Whether that be Daniel Jones or not. I'm not sitting here rooting for anybody's failure. If Daniel Jones can get it done, by all means, go do it, my friend. I want to see the Giants succeed. I like Brian Daboll as a coach, so there might be a little bit of bias there, but I want to see him do well. Obviously we've seen Scotty, I think that was probably a little bit of a hot take, but I also recognize the fact that I don't think you're wrong. I think that we've seen him do it before, right? We've seen him on his one good year that was his contract year, and he came out and Daniel Jones did not look bad. Was he the top tier Patrick Mahomes S-wide or quarterback? Absolutely not. But what he did do was enough to get himself a contract, right?
And he did it with nobody, with a team that was dilapidated in every other sense. We talk about what happened to Daniel Jones? He was so good that year, but we don't even recognize how good he was. He carried that team on his back that season, and were it not for all of the injuries, I think you could expect. Well, obviously that's true, but Saquon definitely helped. But in terms of the passing game, Daniel Jones made things happen that shouldn't have been able to happen. And if he didn't have all of these injuries stacked on top of each other, which I'm not dismissing that because that's a legitimate concern if you're the Giants. You're like, this guy cannot stay healthy, and that's a real problem when you're paying him all this money. So if that's the reason you want to look to move on, that makes sense to me. But in terms of his play, he just has not been given a fair shake at all. And he's probably not going to this year, but they definitely need to try, even if he is the starter. They need to draft a wide receiver. They need to try to give him some weapons because just throwing all that money out the window is crazy to me. Like, that doesn't make any sense when you've seen the capabilities that your quarterback can have if he stays healthy.
I think it's going to be a make or break year for him this year. I think they are going to draft a wide receiver. I think they should draft a wide receiver. And then I think if he's still not able to get it done, he struggles with the health or he struggles with the plays, I think you throw in the towel at that point. But I think this is a shit or get off the pot moment for Daniel Jones, and I hope he recognizes that because that's what I do believe to be the case here.
Well, that's also what lines up with his contract. He does, the Giants do have an out with him after year 2 of it. So that's, this is literally make or break for him because I'd say if he's anything less than, a good quarterback, a top 15 quarterback, he's gone at that point because they're not going to pay a mediocre quarterback $40 million a year.
Yeah, but you know what? Somebody will. Maybe not 40, but he's a starting quarterback. He was a starting quarterback, and there are going to be teams next year that'll also need quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting how this plays out. But I guess it'll all start with the draft here in a couple of weeks.
He'll end up as a bridge quarterback for the Vikings.
Yeah, I could see that. Let's talk about Papa Reed, Mr. Andy Reid, head coach for the Chiefs, because he has come out, and I'm not talking to the closet, but he has come out to all of the media about this Rashee Rice thing and basically said, hey, look, man, I'm going to leave that up to the people to make those decisions. So Rashee Rice this last weekend, he turned himself in after a warrant was issued for his arrest. And then, like I said, Andy Reid had said that Rashee Rice is expected to remotely participate in phase 1 of the team's voluntary workout program. Reed then went on to say that I'm leaving this like we've done for most of these, in which law enforcement will wait for them to take their corrective actions, and then we'll go from there. So
I just want to watch Rashi Rice do burpees in a jail cell on Zoom. Like that's what I picture. I'm going to remotely participate in our team's workouts. Like, what does that even mean? Just jump rope on your Skype camera? I don't get that.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, if I was Rashi Rice, whatever the fuck you're telling me to do, I am doing it. You want me to run 50 miles today? Damn straight I'm going to do it, because he needs to be in the good graces of the Chiefs to try and get a lighter settlement, and or B, any sort of help from the Chiefs whatsoever. If this was a 6th round wide receiver that was a backup, we're not having this conversation. We're probably saying, hey, that stupid ass wide receiver that was a backup for the Chiefs crashed. But because of who he is, we're having this conversation. And I'm not saying that's right, and I'm not saying that's fair, but I think that's just the reality here. So I don't know if there's anything you guys want to elaborate on here with Rashi Rice or not.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's funny you were mentioning like the remote workouts, and I just have this memory of Gronk talking about workouts during COVID, and he was saying something about how he like would freeze his camera during like the workouts, and he just would not participate in any of them, and he was just like, yeah, like screw that, and he would only just be ready for the important stuff in the games. But on the Rashee Rice situation, it's just people have to realize he's an NFL athlete, and there's so many misread reports on everything about the amount of weed that he was carrying, and
60 pounds.
Right, like
I'm just kidding. Don't take that
like let's be real here. He's gonna get probably a 2 or 3 game suspension because of the crash, and maybe like a $50,000 fine, which I'm not saying is a little amount, but for the fantasy owners out there that are worried that he's going to go to jail like Henry Ruggs, like he's going to be fine.
He is in jail unless he posted bail, which I'm assuming he probably did.
Which I'm sure he did. Yeah.
yeah, probably could afford to do that.
I assume they don't let him do voluntary workouts through jail.
I don't know. I was kind of keen on this whole idea of bringing the Skype camera around and watching him do burpees. Like, I would be into that, but yeah, I figured I'd touch on that because that is just an update here to that Rice situation. So let's go over to Brandon Ayuk. This was one that I woke up Saturday morning. I slept in a little bit. I'm going to be completely honest, and there was a lot of drama going on about Brandon Ayuk as soon as I woke up and was eating my Cheerios. The drama kind of came around. It was Ayuk had unfollowed the 49ers on Instagram. I think he did that on Friday, I want to say. So Brandon Ayuk unfollows the 49ers. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's weird as shit that people track this stuff. Like, it is so absurd that you're like, I'm going to go see who this person's following, and I'm following. I don't know who has the time to do that. But I am going to say thank you, because the part of me that finds it weird is also really appreciative that you do that, because I just like the tea. I just like to know all the drama and what's going on. And I'm a dynasty fantasy player, so I kind of want to know what's going on with these players. And if he's got a problem with the 49ers, I need to know about it. So thank you. I appreciate it. But then a report broke that Brandon Ayuk had requested a trade. And that he was frustrated with the 49ers. That's why he unfollowed on Instagram. He wants a trade. He wants out. And then an hour later, it was found out that the reports were false, that he had not requested a trade. So it had the whole NFL media talking heads up in arms. It was a whole point of contention on a Saturday mid-afternoon when I'm trying to finish my breakfast. My head's spinning. I don't know what... I don't really know where to go from here, because Brandon Ayuk, like, I get it. He's frustrated. He wants to get paid. I'm sure that's why he unfollowed the 49ers, but can they afford him? Is he worth it? Like, what are we thinking about here?
Well, the thing that I took away from everything you just said is that we have just a mandate to create all the fake news that we want. We could just make stuff up and just throw it out there and just try and get these stories to get some traction. And I think we're going to start doing that.
Is that how we go viral? Is that what we need to do here?
Yeah, I think we just need to make some shit up. Because, I mean, Juju whipping his penis out and Rashi Rice going to prison, that's not crazy enough. We need to come up with some other things that are going on.
Patrick Mahomes has 11 toes. Breaking news.
That's why he runs so fast.
Exactly. But the thing about Brandon Ayuk is, I think the thing with him is I don't know how the 49ers can get rid of him. Like I just see them losing such an important piece of their offense. But, they do pay a lot of players.
I was gonna say,
However, obviously, Purdy's only played 2 years. He has another year, I think 2 possibly, on his contract left of, obviously like $500K or whatever it is. But it's going to be interesting because the 49ers are going to be, in the pool of drafting a receiver now. And I think they're going to be, looking for a route runner type receiver. I'm just going to go ahead and make a prediction just so not even that far in advance because it's, only 10 days at this point until the draft or 11 days. But I could see them trading Ayuk on draft night to Jacksonville and the 49ers coming in and taking Ladd McConkey. And I think that could be a very interesting pair, with him and Debo. But I think that with Ayuk, you're losing a premier route runner, whereas Debo and McCaffrey and Kittle get the ball in their hands and they're going to make a play. Whereas Ayuk he's going to get open and then, he's good after the catch, but he's not as much as the other guys. And I think that this could be a big issue for their passing game if they don't replace Ayuk, with at least a solid route running, player. But it is interesting to see where he'll go. Obviously, the Bills have been flagged as an option where they give up pick, 26 or wherever they are for him. And then, the Jaguars, like I said. So it should be interesting with him. But obviously with the draft team-up, we could see a draft night trade, like we did with Stephon Diggs and A.J. Brown and, other guys.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, outside of stuff that we don't see every day, if he's really unhappy and it's causing issues in the locker room and causing team cohesive problems, okay, maybe there's something you got to take care of. But there just aren't that many like, I just can't foresee, like the trade scenario you brought up. I don't see that being a net positive for the 49ers. They are in the window of all windows with paying their quarterback under $1 million a year. Like that's as good as it gets. And a quarterback who's been playing well and keeping them competitive. So like now's the time to just pay everybody else and get everybody in the door and screw the future. Like let's win right now. And so Brandon Ayuk is one of those guys that you just want to keep because he has been productive. He's been successful. He's a solid element to your offense. To me, if I'm the 49ers, I'm doing everything I can to keep that guy in the door. Even when you're talking about making a trade up for a receiver in the draft, it's like, okay, outside of the top 3 wide receivers, like who's to say any of the guys in the draft are going to be anywhere near as successful as Brandon Ayuk has proven to already have been?
But I think the thing that we're missing here is the money. And I think that's where the 49ers are really going to start running into issues this year. And I know we all know that the cap space isn't real. Like I think we can agree to that in this room. It's a fictitious thing that does not exist. But for those
Absolutely.
people that do believe in cap space, I'm going to give you a little bit of information here. This year, the 49ers have $6.3 million in cap space that is available to them. Okay. So they got a little, it's not, I mean, look, I'll take $6 million, but that's not a lot of money here in all things considered, but they're still positive. It gets really interesting next year because now they're $23 million in negative cap. So they're going to have to make some moves here. And you start looking at potential cuts. Maybe even Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 years old next year, and he's carrying $24 million in cap. You cut him, that brings you, that's one player that you can cut back to net zero. You know?
But these are problems for next year. Right now, It's let's get Brandon Ayuk in the building for this run that we have when we have a quarterback on a rookie deal and we're not dealing with this. So
and that's why I think it's fun to think about Brandon Ayuk being traded. I think that's something that we all, as fantasy football players, we're all like, man, this could be fun. Like, what's going on here? Because we just like chaos, and we that's what we enjoy about fantasy, especially Dynasty. I don't think he's going to go anywhere because I think this is the 49ers' last attempt to take care of business with a cheap young Brock Purdy. They're not going to have to pay him. I think I'd have to go look at the contracting. I think he might have one more year after this year. I'm not totally certain on it. But you're going to have to start paying these guys, right? It's another year older, another year where you can we stay healthy? Can we stay competitive? Like, it is hard to win in the NFL, and I think most fans don't fully recognize that because you see the elite talent that is Patrick Mahomes competitive, and you see all these players and they do decently well, but it is hard to win in the NFL. And I think that this is kind of a last attempt to get the band back together. And so I think Brandon Ayuk probably will stick around for this last year. And then we might see him tagged and moved in the offseason. We could see Debo move, but I think that they can't afford to not have Brandon Ayuk on this team. And I get the appeal of re-rolling at a young wide receiver, but you already know the talent that is Brandon Ayuk. And I think they recognize that, and them losing that is only going to hinder their chances of going to the dance. So that's my thoughts and opinions.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. I think Debo, in my eyes, would be the odd man out here, especially with his, his play style, and at 28, there's a lot of injury prone possibility with him. And so if I'm the 49ers, I'm trying to maybe deal him to, some other team, to maybe a team in the AFC. And then, that money that goes with Debo can now be saved for Brandon Ayuk. And then you also, bring in another receiver in the draft then at that point, because I think the 49ers could recover better with a number 2 receiver next to Ayuk than Debo, because Ayuk will, create more separation. Whereas, again, like I said earlier, Debo's the guy where you're giving him the ball behind the line of scrimmage and he's making a play for you. So obviously,
and he's
there's
also
a lot
on the field.
Right. That is true. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens with them. Again, this is a situation where I could see during the draft trade where a team is like, the guy that I want isn't up. Let's go get Brandon Ayuk. And the 49ers might have said we're making him available for trade, and maybe they haven't, because obviously we're not part of the organization, so we don't know. But the way I see it, they can't pay him, and we have no clue. He might be sitting out, or he might be leaving after this year. So I think if they can get a first round pick out of him, they're going to do it now.
We'll see. I don't hate the take, and it's like I said, it's a fun game for us T-Dens to play. T. Higgins. Let's talk about him. We're talking about wide receivers that are kind of in that lull of contract negotiations and stuff like that, and I think T. Higgins fits in very nicely right here. So he received the franchise tag back on February 26th. It came as no surprise after that T. Higgins had requested to be traded shortly thereafter, which was on March 11th. And then it's been pretty quiet. We really haven't heard a whole lot about T. Higgins. There's a lot of speculation kind of alongside of this Brandon Ayuk conversation. Maybe he gets moved during the draft. Higgins spoke with the media this past weekend, and he had said that he does anticipate playing with the Bengals this season. He's grown to love Cincinnati, and I didn't think I would, but man, I'm looking forward to it. Those were his words, not mine. Now,
it's got a backhanded compliment to Cincinnati. I didn't think I'd like it here, this dirty old ragged-ass place. But it's all right.
But yeah, it's, what? It's my home now. Essentially, it said that he basically anticipates playing for the Bengals this season. Do you guys think that T remains a Bengal this season? I lean in the camp that I do. I get very much like the 49ers situation that we had discussed previously with Brandon Ayuk. I think the Bengals kind of view themselves in that very similar role where they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. We know that. And that's why T. Higgins has not found a deal. And I think that unfortunately for him, he is going to have to play on this franchise tag this year because the Bengals are desperately counting on him to contribute for their offense. Fair to say?
100%. 100%. What's interesting to think about the Bengals situation is there are a couple ways this season could play out. Like T. Higgins comes back. Obviously, this is a very explosive offense. They have a ton of opportunities to be very successful. But we also know that they, namely Joe Burrow, has struggled with injuries. And we all consider, and rightly so, Joe Burrow to be a top-tier quarterback in the league. When he's healthy, he's good. And it's, maybe some people would argue it's because he's got great weapons around him, but I think he's a great player. Obviously, he's seen a lot of success throughout his collegiate career and in the NFL. With his injury history, if he gets another serious injury this season that takes him out halfway through the year and he's done for the season, the Bengals are in crisis mode at that point, in my opinion. And I'm not saying they just get rid of him, but I'm saying that they start looking at going, okay, we have this guy who's got a ton of upside, but he cannot stay healthy, and our window is closed. So I think T. Higgins is the least of their problems in that case. I think for now, it's just make sure they get everybody in the door. Again, this is what we've been saying for every team. This is their window. Make sure they get everybody in the door, and if it doesn't work out, there's a chance it all gets blown up anyway over the next few years. So let's get everybody in the door right now, try and capitalize on it and go from there. So I think he stays.
Yeah, I think T is going to be a Bengal, and I think he has a new contract in the next couple months. Obviously at first it was that he requested a trade because they didn't want to pay him. But I think the difference in this situation is you look at how the Bengals are, adjusting their roster. Joe Mixon is now a Houston Texan. Tyler Boyd is a free agent who is not re-signed. That was, about 10 mil each right there. So that's 20 mil per year that they're no longer spending on those two players. The only skill position player they are paying right now is Jamar. Everyone else is, a young player or respectfully a bad player on their offense at this point, outside of
how dare you say that about Charlie Brown.
Chase Brown, there you go, and Zach
Brown.
Moss, two very cheap running backs there at this point. But they have the money to re-sign Higgins, and I see no reason where, Higgins came in with Burrow in 2020. They've had a great connection when they've both been healthy on the field. Higgins has been a top 15 receiver every single time. He's an athletic freak, and he complements Jamar very well in the fact that Burrow can throw him the deep ball. He's a guy who gives you sure hands. And I think the Bengals are going to recognize that Jamar cannot carry their offense to a top tier level. Could he be good? I'm sure he could have a great year, getting 200 targets, but will the Bengals be great? No. I think you got to keep T. Higgins. And I think that, if they can lock in Higgins for 25 a year and then Jamar next year for 30 a year, it's going to be a lot of money that they're paying them. But these are your two cornerstone pieces on your offense that you're going to be relying on. And like I said, they don't have any of these other guys that, they're really going to be worried about unless they decide to go out and get one in the draft at, I think they're at 18th overall. So that would be the only, possibility there.
And they could. I don't think it's probable. Obviously they're not going to get the big three that is talked about very highly. But they could go get a wide receiver, and they could say, you know what, let's figure this out before we figure out what we want to do from the financial perspective of paying T. Higgins. Because the reason that Jamar Chase, one of the reasons Jamar Chase hasn't been signed is it's a game that's being played with both him and Justin Jefferson, where they're trying to figure out who's going to get paid what, so then they can use that as a benchmark to get paid. And I do believe that to be the case. I think that and the Vikings and JJ are trying to work through some contract negotiations for that. And I think Jamar Chase is also very, very interested to see what goes on there, because I think they're both kind of in that upper echelon wide receiver. What are you paying them? What is the market value? So I know, and it makes my conversation easier when I go into my GM's office and I say, you need to pay me $90 million for the next 3 years, and here's why.
I think that it also just comes down to Chase is, 1 year later in the draft. So, he kind of already has that free pass in terms of Jefferson is going to get paid before him unless he doesn't want to play on a contract this year. But, you also have to think, is there, a Minnesota tax that they're going to have to pay Jefferson in terms of, Jefferson was talking about wanting the guaranteed money, and the Vikings were saying, we're not going to be willing to pay you, 100 plus guaranteed money for a receiver. And I think that's the tough part, is that, they love Jefferson. Obviously, how can you not? But he wants to set a new standard of contract that a wide receiver has never received. And I think they're a little bit hesitant because, how does that work with the rest of their team with, being able to possibly have to pay a quarterback, if they decide to go the veteran route the next year or however that works. And there is risk to it. But, I think with these receivers, you got to pay them, or else the offense is going to look a lot worse with, the Vikings and the Bengals here.
Yeah, especially the Vikings.
Well, let's okay, before we get into the top 10 pick, because I wanted to transition, but there's a little asterisk here, something that I just think needs brought up. Scotty, I'm going to let you talk about this because I'm somewhat unfamiliar. I guess Brock Purdy fought a coyote with his bare hands and ripped his neck out with his teeth. Is that what happened?
Well, these are just rumors. So I don't know the whole story. I wasn't there, but the rumors that I heard is he dug deep into his soul and pulled out his inner Ronald Reagan. He was outside of the city. He had his cowboy hat on, shirtless. He was doing a John Deere tractor shoot because he just signed this new deal with John Deere, which is awesome, by the way. That's an awesome.
That is a great.
Yeah.
Good. Kudos to John Deere. You got your guy. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So I guess he was out doing the shoot, and this reporter lady came up with her dog and said, "Oh shit, that's Brock Purdy. I should probably try and go talk to him." And then as that whole thing happened, a whole wild pack of rabid coyotes came flying out of the woodwork in San Francisco for some reason. I didn't even know they had coyotes there, but apparently they do. And Brock Purdy just fought him with his bare hands like Chuck Norris. And fended off, saved
Kill the whole pack?
Killed the whole pack. He saved this lady from certain death and her dog. Maybe more importantly, her dog. Saved her dog from certain death. And Brock Purdy is a hero yet again. He doesn't do anything wrong. He wins at Iowa State. He wins in San Francisco. He saves damsels in distress on the street from rabid coyote attacks. It's just as good as it gets.
And I don't know, like I said, I didn't really get to read the article fully. Was there something about a key to the city in there?
Definitely. I think actually the mayor, I don't know who the mayor of San Francisco is. I'm not really keyed in on that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
But
yeah.
I think he gave him the key to the city and a Superman cape that he can don at any time. And then they installed Brock Purdy lights like Batman signals all across San Francisco in case of the rabid coyote situation gets worse there. You know, they can call him right into action. So it's a good situation for Brock Purdy. He's going to be busy, but he's going to be a hero.
And it really, I hope that the city has him on retainer and they're paying him handsomely to do this because the 49ers aren't paying him jack shit to do what he's doing now. So I hope that the city's at least taking care of him for doing such a good job.
Yeah, definitely. They probably gave him coupons to whatever the staple is there. Maybe, I don't know if Subway, everyone eats Subway there maybe. People are health conscious.
What is it, In-N-Out is like the thing in California?
I don't know. I don't really want my quarterbacks eating In-N-Out all the time.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
But, look, man, I don't know what else they got. I don't live in California. All right. Well, I appreciate you doing the homework on that one, Scotty. Thank you for keeping us up to date in the Purdy versus Coyote situation there. Let's quickly talk about the top 10 NFL picks here very quickly. I just want to kind of have a little bit of banter about this because the NFL draft is coming up, not next week, but actually next Thursday. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the Bears. The Bears have the number 1 overall pick. Very obviously, Caleb Williams. I don't think that's even a surprise. I don't think we really need to have a whole lot of conversation about it. We're all in agreement that Caleb Williams is going to the Chicago Bears. Congratulations.
Congratulations, first of all. Yeah.
I mean, anyone who wants to, mock differently or say differently is just trying to be different. That's all I'm going to say about it. There's no reason why anybody should be, all the media tries to do is, he paints his nails, he cries,
Wow, those are
we
legitimate
didn't beat
concerns.
Utah, whatever it might be. It's like
tears from a human being.
Yeah, like if you watch this guy, like there's nothing that you can say about him that would say otherwise of him being the number 1 pick. So not even much more to talk about. He'll be a Chicago Bear very soon.
But this is where I want to ask the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull the bookmark out. I'm gonna hand it to you, Scotty.
Out.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. So you are Caleb Williams in this fictional world, number 1 quarterback. Would you rather go to the Bears in their current setup with Eberflus but all their weapons? And I don't mean to say Eberflus but as if that's automatically bad because I'm sure he's a great guy.
I haven't seen his ass, man, but I'll tell you that haircut is doing wonders for him.
Yeah, he definitely upgraded. Or would you rather go to the Vikings with their coaching staff? Obviously, they have a lot of weapons as well. Which situation do you think is better? I'm on record saying I think the Vikings are far and away better, but the Bears are the clear number 2. I think obviously the Bears are in a good situation with all the additions that they have as well, but I think the Vikings are next level in terms of spots for a rookie quarterback. So Kahan, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. We've all talked about it.
Yeah, so this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say for individual success of Caleb and, statistics that he's putting up, I think the Vikings would be the best situation, strictly because you have Jefferson, you have Addison, you have Hawkinson coming back later in the season, even Aaron Jones. But if you are looking at team success, I like the Bears here. I just think because I think the Bears offense, while it might not be as good as Minnesota, I think it's very comparable at certain levels. Like I said, we have a top 5, in my opinion, at least wide receiver duo now at this point in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. We have a good running back in DeAndre Swift, 2 good tight ends. Again, like we might add somebody at 9th overall. So we've been building the O-line. And then there's the great defense. I think that the team is just so filled out that, obviously I'm sure we'll talk more about, the expectation of the Bears for this upcoming season, once we get to the summer. But, I expect this team to win no less than, 9 or 10 games. And I think that, if you add Caleb Williams to this team with the other free agent additions and the 9th overall pick, to a team that had 7 wins last year with 3 fourth quarter double-digit leads blown where we had an ESPN 99% chance to win. There's just no reason that we shouldn't have double-digit wins this year. And I think that, with Minnesota, there's a lot of questions.
Even with a rookie quarterback, that's still within play?
I do. Wow. Just because the situation around is so great that I think if Caleb is half of what people expect him to, that would still be better than what Fields was for us last year.
Wow.
Do you think that Caleb Williams is going? I know I've been harping on the painted nails thing, so just let me get one more question in. Do you think he's going to have some special Bears Packers fingernail polish going? I feel like if any game, that's
I
going to be
actually
the game.
kind of hope that he does.
If it's not something about fuck the Packers, then I don't know what he's doing at that point. I mean, let's just be real here. He has to get on that Green Bay hate train right away, especially because obviously they're on the ups too. So it's I think one thing, just a little bit on a separate note, but with the Bears and Packers rivalry, it should be great because two great young quarterbacks, hopefully, and as much as I hate them, it is going to be fun to compete with them for years, and hopefully Caleb has Jordan Love's number for the duration of the future.
Okay, so let's go to number 2 then. The Washington Commanders. I hate that name. I'm just going to say the Commanders is such a terrible team name, but it is what it is. I can't say the R word.
They didn't ask us. I don't know. They didn't write me a letter. They definitely should.
Ridiculous. They got a second overall pick, and it is of no surprise that they desperately need some quarterback help, especially since they traded Sam Howell away to the Seahawks this offseason. So there's been a lot of conversations, gentlemen, about these quarterbacks. We have J.J. McCarthy, who was not even a first-round player, is now being touted as the best quarterback to ever be created for the NFL. We have Drake May, the guy with the cannon. There's some question marks around his mobility. And then Jaden Daniels, who is kind of I think he gets a comparison to maybe Patrick Mahomes in some ways when he's making his throws and on the move. So I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels at number 2 to the Commanders. I think that just makes sense from a fit perspective. I think their offensive coordinator being who he is. He's a former Arizona head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. He prototypically likes those mobile quarterbacks, and I do believe that Jaden Daniel has a very high ceiling. So I think he also has a low floor, but I think that can be said for almost every quarterback in this draft. So give me Jaden Daniels at number 2 to the Commanders.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Schefter did some interview with some podcast, I think it was today or yesterday, where he basically said, if you're a Commanders fan, you can go buy the Jaden Daniels jersey. Like, he thinks it's a lock. And I tend to agree. I mean, I think it's the best fit when you look at the offensive coordinator situation and you look at the splash that they're trying to make on this offense, and hopefully it works out. But I think at this point, you can pretty much put your money on Jaden Daniels going to Washington.
Yep, I completely agree. The Heisman winner, he looked great this year. He can do it all. He can run, he can throw, and he's a great dual threat QB. I think it'll be interesting to see, how, Terry McLaurin performs, and, if we see an uptick in Jahan Dotson targets with the departure of Curtis Samuel, and, also the addition of Austin Eckler. So it should be an interesting, team, especially with, Washington also does have a lot of day 2 picks. So, who knows what they're going to do with this offense. I assume they're going to really try to build around him, maybe go lineman in the second round and maybe a third receiver. So I like Daniels here. I think he'll be, a fun player to watch for years to come.
Okay, let's go to number 3, the Patriots, the 3rd overall pick.
Interesting.
No surprise, they also need a quarterback, and I think that's probably what they're going to do here. Now, I will say the Patriots have said that if they don't have their guy, they might be interested in trading down if the price is right. I'm not buying it. I think that the Patriots are pretty much going to have to draft a quarterback. I think Jacoby Brissett is their current starter, and I like Jacoby. I think Jacoby's a good quarterback, but a good bridge quarterback. But I do think that they are interested in drafting a quarterback here, and I'm of the belief that it's probably going to be Drake May. I think, and it's hard for me to say, and we've had this conversation before on this show, but if Bill Belichick was a head coach there, I would say it's Drake May easy because he kind of fits that prototypical quarterback that Belichick likes, that guy with the big cannon who is able to kind of sit in the pocket, doesn't have as much mobility, but can make those good throws, those crazy throws. That's what Drake May is. I still do think he's probably the 3rd quarterback off the board. That's who I have. I've seen some people think it could be J.J. McCarthy. I'm not buying that. I'm going to take Drake May at 3.
Well, I've said before that I think the Patriots are the wild card of this draft. We don't know if they're going to trade down. We don't know if they take a quarterback. I assume they're going to take a quarterback. We don't know who it is because we don't know anything about what they want to do. We don't know anything about this organization right now. Everything has changed over the last few years. It would not surprise me if they do take J.J. McCarthy. And I think Gerard Mayo wants to make a splash. He wants to come in and do something right away that gets him on the radar. And I think taking someone like J.J. McCarthy changes the entire culture of the Patriots. I mean, you are completely changing the quarterback position. Obviously they had Cam Newton at some point, but outside of that, it's been statues in the pocket, and they built their offense around that. And it would not surprise me if they're trying to say, hey, let's just get a playmaker. Let's get somebody who can run around out there and make the good throws when we need him to. And I just think that there's a real chance that Gerard Mayo says, let's just go ahead and make a splash. Let's take J.J. McCarthy. So I think I'm going to do that. I'd be sad if that was the case, because the Patriots is just like, we talk about the Vikings being the best. The Patriots is like where a quarterback will go to die. I just think your career is going to get off to a rough start with the Patriots.
You do know that their wide receiver will show you his penis in the locker room, though.
That's a good point. And that may be a perk.
I think he will be perked when he does it, for sure. What do you have going on here for the Patriots at number 3?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of a different opinion on it. I think that, when I look at it, I think Gerard Mayo, you have to look at like his job security here. How does he fare with this team? Are they giving him a long leash knowing the team, is pretty depleted right now? Or is it, a 2-year window and he's gone if they don't see anything good? Because if I was the Patriots, I would trade down. I would try to trade down with Minnesota and get both of their first. And I think they could get more at that point too. I think they could get probably another second, maybe 2 seconds, whatever it might be. I'm trying to make that trade. I don't think they're a quarterback away from winning. I think if they bring a quarterback in, I think that they're going to struggle a lot with the lack of, weapons they have on this team. I would trade back to 11 and get, pick 23, take a receiver at that pick. If Odunze is up, or, maybe Brian Thomas, somebody like that. And then 23, maybe get another offensive playmaker, or get, a tackle, whatever it might be. But I just don't know if Drake May is going to succeed in this, situation. It just, or, JJ, but it just kind of,
I don't think either will.
Right. I think they're just going to go into a similar situation that Mac Jones did, where it's like, did they ever feed him a good receiver? No. And at first I was like, take Marvin Harrison at 3, but with
he doesn't turn the needle enough.
Yeah, with the depleted roster they have, I think it would be better for them to trade down and accumulate more value and still get, a great receiver prospect. It doesn't have to be the best, but if Mayo's security of his job is not great, obviously drafting May gives him basically a 3-year window, because it's a rookie quarterback. You got to give him time at that point. So I do expect them to take Drake May, but I would not be surprised if we saw, a trade out in, the next coming days, or even on draft night.
Yeah, I think draft night is when we will see something happen, which is, that's just always a good time. Pick number 4, Arizona Cardinals. What it do, baby boy? I'm taking Marvin Harrison. And if the Cardinals fuck this up, I'm going to be pissed. I'm just going to say that as a Cardinals fan. Take Marvin Harrison. Don't fuck this up. Do not overthink it. Just take Marvin Harrison. Yeah, you could trade it. We need a wide receiver so desperately bad. Don't fuck this up. Get a generational guy. I want Marv. That's what I'm taking here.
Yeah, I think unless they trade out for something crazy, which I actually think it would take something crazy for them to give that up.
I do too. No, I do.
And if they trade out for something crazy, maybe that's a good move. But at the end of the day, it just seems like they know what they want. They know what they need. Why complicate it? Why complicate it? Just go get the best wide receiver in the draft. That's all you got to do.
Thank you.
Yep. Completely agree. Harrison's the pick. Don't overcomplicate it. Their receiver 1 right now is Michael Wilson. Get the best player. Get the best, in my opinion,
Put
best
some
player
respect on his name. That is Mr. Michael Wilson to you.
Yeah.
Here's my thing.
And then be done.
I don't think the Vikings, if the Patriots trade down and take the Vikings, I was thinking about this, and I should have said it when we were still talking about the Patriots. I think there's going to be 3 wide receivers in the top 10 this year, which is freaking nuts. But looking at what the team needs based on this draft here, there's a very good chance that all three of the big name wide receivers are off the board before we get to pick number 11. So let's go over to pick number 5, Chargers, and number 5. I've seen this as a hot commodity for a trade, a potential trade. And I think depending upon how things shake out on draft night, that's really going to come to fruition here. So I think the Chargers are in need of quite a few different things at this point, and I think it would make sense for them to trade down. Here's what I see happening. if the Patriots are very content on drafting, let's say Drake May, I think the Vikings do make a push here with the Chargers and they go for JJ McCarthy, and I think that's what we will see in this situation. Now, if the Patriots decide that they're not really interested and they're going to put the pick up to the highest bidder, that might be the Vikings. But it also might be somebody else, and the Vikings sit here and wait at 5 so they don't have to pay the price that the Patriots might want to charge them. So that's what I see happening. And then the Chargers also need wide receiver help, right? I think it's no surprise that Quentin Johnston was not the wide receiver that everybody had hoped he would be for that team. And he's currently their wide receiver 1, unless you want to count Josh Palmer as their wide receiver 1. So desperately need help at wide receiver. They don't have a running back because Austin Eckler's gone. They got the Gus Bus, but I don't really want to include him. And then they need offensive line help too. So do you take Joe Alt here at number 5? That's a potential as well. So I could see the Chargers maybe going a couple different ways here. If I was a betting man, I would say that they're going to trade out of it. Given the scenario that I have in my head of the Patriots keeping a quarterback at 3, I see the Vikings moving up to number 5.
Yeah. And it seems like that through all the mock drafts that, we're all obsessed with looking at this time of year, it really seems like it's almost become a consensus that that's going to happen now, that the Vikings are going to jump up and take this pick, which the Vikings obviously are willing to do and they need to do. And it seems like, the Chargers are just in such a weird situation because obviously everybody still thinks Justin Herbert is the guy and he's a high level player and they can make a real run with him. But right now, what else do they have? They don't have anything else. They're not going to be able to compete at this point. So it's almost like, depending on if you're looking at their situation with rose colored glasses, where, some Chargers fans are saying, we got Justin Herbert the same way we talk about Josh Allen. The window's always open. We got Justin Herbert. And then other people are saying, they're in more of the Patriots situation where, like, you need to rebuild. Like, you need to completely rebuild. You need to get pieces everywhere. So you need capital and you need to trade out of this pick and be able to bolster a whole bunch of different positions on your roster. So this is kind of another wild card one for me. I don't know where this office values this team, but if I were them, I would also trade out of this spot.
Yeah, I currently have the Chargers taking Neighbors at 5. I think that, they might just say, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's take a stud receiver. If Harrison wasn't in this draft, Neighbors would be the top prospect in most other drafts. Well, I do think they do need a lot of things. I think they do have to work on, the continued development with Herbert. Losing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams is going to be a tough adjustment for him, and Eckler and Gerald Everett, losing basically your entire offense.
Everybody.
And,
who are all these people?
Obviously it's for the best, but also your coach too. So it's like, he's entering a really new situation. And I think that, while they could trade down from 5 to, 11, and then also receive pick 23 and, maybe another pick, that could be great for them. And if that's the direction that Harbaugh wants to go, if they're playing for the long game, I don't dislike it, but I think if they stay at the pick, I think Neighbors is the pick, get the elite receiver 1 that you want. And, help build a connection with him and Herbert, for years to come.
Yeti says 29 looks good on you. Thank you, buddy. And then he has a question here for Scotty. Which team is better right now, the Raiders or the Chargers?
I hate them both.
You got to
It's tough because obviously the Raiders need a quarterback. The Chargers have a quarterback. But I think with everything else, I would go with the Raiders. With everything else, I would go with the Raiders. And the Raiders' defense, I think we are underestimating the Raiders' defense. I think this is going to be an elite defensive unit in 2024. I think they're going to give a lot of people a lot of problems, and maybe they don't need elite quarterback play to win some of these games. They're going to get scrappy. Max Crosby is going to carry this team to a lot of victories, so I think I would side with the Raiders, as much as it pains me to say.
Okay. Draft pick number 6. Giants are on the board.
Yeah, I think here, this is where we're looking at, if JJ McCarthy is up, I do think he could be the pick here. If not, if he's not up, then I think Neighbors is the pick. Like, I think they're going to
I think Neighbors is, I do believe that Neighbors will be a Giant. I really do believe that. You look at, you just mentioned like 25 minutes ago, actually it's probably longer than that, but when we were talking about the Giants wide receiver room, who are their wide receivers? Wan'Dale Robinson, a 5'10", little, like zippy guy, and then you have Isaiah Hodgins.
Nebraska vet.
Yeah, well, he is what he is. They don't have any wide receivers. They haven't had any wide receivers since Sterling Shepard was relevant, and then he wasn't. And like, and OBJ, right? So like that's how long it has been since they have had a pass catcher that we could actually be like, yeah, that guy's a guy, right? They need that. They need that. And why would you not get Neighbors? Because I do believe that he is the second best wide receiver in this draft. Why would you not get him and shore up that wide receiver room just a little bit more? Because
yeah, no, I agree. I was gonna say let's just say Neighbors goes 5, and then you have the option of McCarthy and Odunze, because I feel like that if Neighbors is up, then that means, or I guess yeah, if Neighbors is up, that means that JJ goes 5. But
Correct.
let's say Neighbors goes 5. Who are you taking then?
if I was the Giants,
Yep.
I get on the.
I'm still taking Odunze at that point. I'm taking the best wide receiver that's available, period. Because
I'm
it
picking
doesn't
up the
matter.
phone.
It doesn't matter who your quarterback is. If you do not have pass catchers, you don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. So you don't have any options. You have to get a wide receiver here. To me, if they do anything besides get a top tier wide receiver, the best wide receiver available, it's a total failure.
I think you're picking up the phone. Let's say hypothetically JJ McCarthy still is there at 6. You know that the Vikings are interested. Trade down to 11, get yourself some extra picks because you know that you need to rebuild in a lot of different places. Pick up their 11, get a second round pick. I don't know what that pick would garner as far as value, but I know it would still be pretty high, especially if the Vikings are very interested in JJ McCarthy, and I believe that they are. I would be picking up the phone and saying, what do you want for this? What are you willing to give me for this? Go down to 11, get yourself still a good wide receiver, or I mean, you could have your plethora of options there at that point.
Adunze could still be there at 11 too. We expect him to go in the top 10, but he could be. He's right in that range from 9 to 11, right? I didn't mean to say 9-11 right there. So sorry, everyone. But
wow,
yeah,
Bills fans are triggered.
What I also will say, for just the sake of argument, is that the contrary is, if they don't take JJ, and let's say they do take Odunze at 6, or they got Neighbors, what happens if they have another mid-year, and then you're looking at pick 11 in the draft, and where are you getting the quarterback? And I think could be the issue, is that there's only so many quarterbacks every year. Right now it looks like it's going to be a weaker quarterback class for the next season. Is there going to be a guy that they want, and are they going to have a high enough pick? Because you're looking at a team with an elite defense, and a team that's building their O-line a little bit, and if they would have a top end receiver, it's not necessarily guaranteed that they would be in play to get a quarterback. And you look at what's the more important position on the field, and that's the quarterback. So that's just, I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think that's where, they are also considering that, and where like Giants media might stand on that.
Yeah. My thought is, unless you have someone like Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Obviously, the quarterback is the most important position on the field, but that quarterback is only successful if his team is successful. And you can elevate to a certain degree, but at some point in time, you need to have pass catchers. And the Giants have gone so long without prioritizing this position. I think the fan base is sick of it. I think the organization is sick of it. They just need somebody that they feel like they can rely on in that wide receiver room, and they need it immediately. Especially, it makes the most sense when you consider the fact that this is Daniel Jones' shit or get off the pot year. Like they need to know if this is a guy that they want to discard, or they want to move on from, or they want to stay invested in. And you're not going to get that answer if you do not give him some talent. That's the bottom line.
Okay, so you're going to say wide receiver, Scotty. I'm going to say wide receiver or trade out, depending on what it is. You're going to say draft a quarterback if it's JJ McCarthy, or a wide receiver if
I'm saying
McCarthy's off the board.
JJ or Neighbors. It's one of the two.
JJ or Neighbors. Okay, we'll see. Pick number 6 is the Titans. I think this is where we finally see Joe Alt come off the board. That's my opinion. The Titans need some offensive line help, especially at the tackle position. And Joe Alt is the number 1 rated offensive lineman in this draft for good reason. So I have him going to the Titans here at 7. I think it makes sense. And you're both nodding your head yes. So I think we're all in agreement there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Joe Alt is actually my favorite prospect in this draft. I think he has Hall of Fame written all over him. The Notre Dame offensive lineman. He tested well. He played well. They cut Andre Dillard already, so I think this looks like the most lock of a pick outside of the top 1 to 2 picks that we can see in this draft.
Titans got to be happy about that too, right? Like you look at their situation. Like I would be very. It's not a sexy pick. Drafting an offensive lineman is never sexy. It's not fun, but it's necessary. And when you get a caliber of somebody like Joe Alt at 7, I think that's great. So I think that's where he'll fit in at.
And they've also made a lot of great moves. They brought in L'Jarius Sneed and Awuzie, and on offense they brought in Ridley and brought in Tony Pollard. So they're not a contender, but they are
they're frisky.
They're building the team around Levis kind of under the radar, and I don't think they're getting nearly enough credit for it that they're having a great offseason.
Pick number 8, Falcons. This is where things get really freaking interesting. This is where things get really interesting because I could see both an offensive or defensive player come off here.
See, I think it's a lock for a defensive player. I think
it probably is.
The Falcons are very happy with how this offense is coming together. They're very optimistic about the offensive output that's going to come this season. I think they pick up some sort of edge rusher. I'm not an expert on all the edge rushers in the class, but I think that's probably the position that they focus on. If they don't go there, I think they're going to go linebacker or cornerback, but I think primarily they're thinking edge rusher at this spot.
Yeah, right now I have them boxed taking Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama, at 8. I think he's the best defensive player on the board. He's very athletic, has a lot of potential. I think that would be great for their defense. I think if they stay at that pick, that's what they're going to select. I do see them as a prime candidate to trade down, though. They could trade down from 8 to pick, 13 with the Colts, and the Colts trade up and get a receiver in the draft. And, the Falcons go down and grab a Jared Verse out of Florida State, or a Latu out of UCLA. So I think there's a lot of possibilities to the Falcons. I think if they stay, they're going to take Turner, but I do see a team possibly trying to jump the Bears for a receiver, Bears and Jets for a receiver here. Somebody in the 10 to 15 range that's looking for a high end receiver in Rome Odunze.
That would be fun. That would be fun. So let's say hypothetically it is the Colts. Okay. Let's put a bookmark in this. We're going to say that the Colts trade up with the Falcons. I think they're going to take a defensive player here. I don't think they're going to trade it away. But if they do, they could get some value for this. So let's say it's the Colts. So we're going to come back to this. Chicago at number 9. Congratulations. You're back on the clock. Are you
what a
taking
time to be a
Odunze?
Bears fan, dude.
I
What
know.
a time. It's so exciting.
It's like the most, it doesn't even you don't even understand how happy, as soon as we lost that week 18 game to Green Bay, it's I know that after that shitty ass performance by Justin Fields, he is gone. We have the number 1 pick and the number 9 pick after all that. But realistically here, they've already made it clear that it's going to be between a tackle, an edge, and a receiver. Me personally, I'd love an edge here. I think that we need a guy on the opposite side of Montez Sweat. But I do see us as a candidate to trade down. Poles has proved in, so far his first 2 drafts that he is not afraid to trade down. And, there's a lot of good edge rushers out there. There's a lot of good tackles out there. There's a lot of good receivers out there. I think that, with the Bears only having, I think we only have 4 picks in the draft, which is the least out of any team in the league. That, we're a candidate to trade down into the 10 to 15 range. Somebody trades up with us, assuming Atlanta goes defense and, takes Rome Odunze. And for us, we get a 2nd round pick that, maybe we then spend on a receiver as our receiver 3. And at that other pick, we end up taking, maybe we take Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, or we take Jared Verse out of Florida State. I just think there's a lot of, good prospects at all those positions. And with our lack of picks for this draft, I think we're a prime candidate to trade down here and, get a guy who we can see as similar quality. Because, Poles did do that last year with Darnell Wright, who was a little bit of an unexpected pick at the time. He was, ranked as the 3rd or 4th behind Skoronski, and obviously Paris Johnson. So I could see, a more of a surprising pick out of the Bears here, but I do have trust in Poles because he has, a good proven track record over his first 2 years.
So you do think, are you pretty locked in that they will trade down? Is that where you're
I
leaning?
think it would be a good move, but I think that if Dallas Turner's up at 9, I think he's the pick. And I think, maybe I guess if Odunze is up, obviously one of them is going to be up. So I just, to be truthfully honest,
maybe not.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Well, the thing is, technically, one of them has to be up. Unless JJ is still up, either Odunze, Turner, or Joe Alt, one of them is going to be up.
Maybe the Falcons sell. Maybe Giants get Neighbors. So Cardinals are going to take Marv. Giants take Neighbors at 6. and the Falcons say, hey, highest bidder goes to Odunze at 8.
So then at that point, we would have Dallas Turner up on the board, and I think we'd take him.
Okay. And if Dallas Turner is gone because the Falcons take him at 8, does that make you go Odunze at 9 or trade out?
I think if we stay at the pick, we're taking Odunze, but we could trade out. But I think it's going to be one of Alt, Odunze, or Turner. It's one of those three. Those three are going to be 7, 8, 9 in the draft, and we are just going to take. If we stay in that pick, we are going to take the one that falls to us.
Yeah,
okay.
and yep. I think you can just limit it to Turner and Odunze. I think it's going to be one of those two guys unless they trade out, which now that you say that does make sense. I didn't consider that. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of those two guys is who I put my money on.
Yep.
Okay. Last one, New York Jets, pick number 10, and then we'll get the hell out of here. I think it's going to be Brock Bowers. I think it is going to be Bowers here at 10. I think this is something that the Jets have kind of low-key been looking for pass catchers. They actually really hasn't been low key. They've been actually pretty fucking vocal about it. And they will go out. They have this offseason, they were trying to sign anybody under the sun to come and play wide receiver for them. Obviously, they got Mike Williams in there, but they were looking for somebody. They had been very vocal, and then they had kind of talked about it. Maybe they might draft somebody in this draft here. With all these wide receivers gone, you start kind of looking at some other options. Brock Bowers is a very highly touted tight end, and if you look at the Jets' tight end room at this moment, I'm just going to read a couple names off to you guys. You guys know who Kenny Yeboah is?
Oh, yeah. My boy Kenny.
Jeremy Ruckert?
Yeah, my LSU guy.
Okay. Zach, I'm going to butcher this, Kuntz?
Yeah, totally.
Or Tyler Conklin?
Conklin.
All these guys are fucking old. Tyler Conklin's old. He's on a 1-year deal. He's been their primary tight end for a long time, and they brought him back on a 1-year deal. I think Brock Bowers is a prime candidate here because not only is he a very athletic tight end that can catch the ball, but he also blocks really well, and I think that's really going to benefit good old Mr. Schmerin Rogers at the Jets. So that's what I have happening. For fantasy football, kind of makes me just a little sad because I don't love that landing spot for Brock Bowers, but I do think that is a very, very probable thing that the Jets do here because they're getting the best of both worlds with a blocker and a catcher.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It's been my thought that they're just going to take the best wide receiver. If Odunze happens to fall to that spot, I think they take him. Otherwise, I think they're going to take Brian Thomas. So I think it's just whichever the best wide receiver is left on the board. I think that's what they want. They've basically said as much, throughout this offseason that they want pass catchers. They're going to take, and Brian Thomas, he's going to be the last wide receiver off the board in all likelihood. He's a great wide receiver. I think whichever team lands him is getting a steal. Now, I personally think that's the most likely route that they go, but I don't hate that pick. I'm just holding out for Brock Bowers to go to Cincinnati. I think if he falls that far, that would just be a dream come true.
I would love that, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, I agree a lot with Scotty here and you, Hunter. I think that, Bowers, he is my pick here. I think if Odunze does fall to 10, I think they take him, but considering that is unlikely, I do think that Bowers is the pick here. Tight end is a clear hole on their team, and I like I said, I'm living in New York right now, so a lot of Jets fans too. And the truth is, this is their window. They brought in Tyron Smith and they brought in Morgan Moses, 2 old tackles. But the reality is, they are not going to be drafting a tackle here to sit behind one of these 2 guys for the future because Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old or turning 40.
Are you serious?
So it's like you got to get your pass catcher to help out. And their defense obviously is great and, doesn't need much help. So I think they go with a generational tight end prospect here in Bowers. And, maybe like you said, he isn't the most fantasy exciting player, but I think he'll have a great role in terms of kind of how we see George Kittle right now, where, he's a terrific blocker and then he'll have his big games, but he's not going to be that every week player where he's, putting up 15 to 20 points.
Yeah. It's like, I think you said it perfectly, man. Like, that's kind of how I see it. It doesn't get me excited. It makes me kind of sad because I want Brock Bowers. I do think I think Brock Bowers to the Bengals would be amazing. And you look at their tight end room and it's pretty depleted. I think that would be really fun. I think it would probably get frustrating from a fantasy perspective because now it's just like, dude, is it T or is it the medley of running backs? Is it Jamar Chase? Like, there's just a lot of mouths to feed now. But it is, I don't know, maybe it's the colors to me. Maybe orange is just a faster color than that jet green. I'm not sure. Or the Colts even would be really fun. I like Bowers
Yeah.
to the Colts, and they do need, that would be one that I would really be interested in, is Bowers to the Colts would really, that'd get me going for fantasy purposes, because they do need some wide receiver help there in some ways, and Bowers kind of offers that to him, as well as, like I said, that blocking upside. So
I got one
Absolutely.
last thing before we wrap it up.
Okay.
I would like all of the Brainiacs to know Slapdog is 1 year closer to 30. Happy birthday, my
Thank
friend.
you. I appreciate that.
And if
Thank
anyone
you.
wants to send him a present, you send it to me first. I'll make sure he gets it.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you so much
Anytime,
for
buddy.
vetting all of the gifts that I won't receive. No, I do appreciate it. And I appreciate you joining us today, Matthew. It has been a pleasure. We'll have to do it again here. And we called an audible, had you come in here towards the last minute, and you did wonderful. And it was a pleasure talking with you today. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and I am really annoyed that we keep bringing people on and then they immediately become the smartest people in the room. Like, we got to stop doing that.
No, I think it's actually...
It's
You're
a good
supposed
thing
to
for
do that.
it's a good thing for the podcast. There's no doubt about it. But it's bad for my ego because we brought on Alan, and then we brought on Yeti, we brought on Alan, we brought on Kahan, and it's like, fuck, I'm just moving lower and lower down this list of people who are qualified to have an opinion about anything.
I think it's great.
Well, you know, maybe some of the younger brainiacs now can be like, hey, you know, we got somebody under the age of 30 now, you know, on this podcast.
Hey,
So-
I'm
what the-
29, motherfucker.
Me too.
But yeah,
Alright.
like you said, thanks for having me, and you know, hopefully many more good episodes to come.
Amen, brother. All right, let's get the hell out of here. Appreciate all you brainiacs. Hit subscribe, do all the things. I love you guys. We
R.
Out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.